Lights, camera, action.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to Married to Movies. I am Emily.
And I'm Jon.
And today we are both super excited because we are covering Toy Story 3.
Yes.
Which on the last podcast, Moneyball, I think when we were introducing Toy Story 3, you had said this was your favorite Toy Story movie. And I kind of said, well, I don't know. I take it back. This is probably my favorite Toy Story movie too.
Good.
Originally, I was thinking Toy Story 2 was my favorite, which it is still a very good movie. But rewatching this again just like hit me in the feels. So I really do think I like this one the best.
Yes. This is a fantastic movie.
It is.
And I'm excited to talk about it today. Just a quick thank you once again to Jeff Strickland for joining us last week on the Moneyball episode. Mm-hmm. It was a phenomenal episode. If you guys are interested in sports movies, or you know Jeff, or you just like us, go check that episode out. It was a really good one. It was a great interview. So thank you again, Jeff, for joining us. It was a lot of fun to have you in the studio. And with that, let's dig into Toy Story 3.
All right. Well, Toy Story 3 was released on June 18th of 2010. It was directed by Lee, how do you say his name? Unkrich?
I don't know.
Okay. I did not put the full cast list because there's just so many characters, so I just hit on the main ones. It is starring Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Michael Keaton, Joan Cusack, Ned Beatty, I think is how you say his name, John Morris, Jodie Benson, and Emily Hahn. It was distributed by Walt Disney Pictures. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 40 minutes. It is rated G. Its budget was $200 million, and its box office total, do you have a guess? Budget $200 million.
Then we'll say that the total was $750 million.
$1.067 billion.
Wow, very nice.
This is, I think, the first movie we've covered on our podcast that hit $1 billion.
It certainly is not. We have covered other movies that have hit $1 billion.
Okay, well, I take that back. But yeah, still, I mean, they made quite a bit of money on this one.
Yes, they did.
All right, well, let's jump into some fun facts. I had a lot of fun researching this. I feel like I find the best fun facts on animated movies. I don't know why, but I just enjoy finding neat things. My first one is that animators faced significant challenges in animating fur realistically, particularly for Lotso, because he, is furry.
He's a fuzzy bear.
And they also said that the hardest thing to animate in this whole movie was the trash. Like, they said it was very, very difficult.
Oh, like at the junkyard?
Yes, just like because of the light reflecting off of it. And specifically, they said trash bags were very difficult just because of the ways that they bend and fold and stretch and everything.
Interesting.
But I do remember when we were just watching this the other day, thinking to myself, like, the animation in this movie is really well done, very detailed, and, you can tell that they put a ton of work into it.
Yes, this is certainly one of, I don't know, like, it feels like the premier Pixar movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, ever since Pixar's inception, it's been pushing the boundaries of what computers are capable of generating in terms of animation and quality storytelling. And Toy Story 3 is certainly both of those things. Mm-hmm. But there's without a doubt like a turning point in Pixar's history because everybody has to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. So like A Bug's Life is good as far as storytelling and animation goes, as well as Toy Story, their first two movies. But then obviously it goes without saying that they improved over time. The animation got more refined, technology improved, and so on and so forth. So then, fast forward many years and you come to Cars and Wall-E and Ratatouille, and those movies are all phenomenal. And they're definitely more of like Pixar in its stride. Not that A Bug's Life or Toy Story was bad or anything like that, but they had more time, brought on more talent, technology advanced, and Toy Story 3 specifically feels like kind of that, maybe the culmination of all of those efforts. The culmination of storytelling, the culmination of technology, the culmination of animation, as far as Pixar goes. It really feels kind of like their flagship film and a very distinct turning point in terms of this is the standard for a Pixar movie. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious what movie came out before this. I don't know. For my own curiosity. You can continue. I will look into that in the background, but
Okay. So my next fact is that for the prison escape sequence, prison referring to Sunnyside, the team drew inspiration from various prison films for this scene or scenes. So the director, Lee Unkrich, however you say his name, Unkrich, he stated that they watched almost every prison movie available to accurately depict all of the dynamics of a mass breakout. And I'm sure, John, that you could guess at least one of these.
yes, I know for a fact, just because there were direct references to the movie, that one of their inspirations had to have been The Shawshank Redemption.
Correct.
Yes, which, hint, hint, guys, if you're a fan of that movie, or you're at least interested in it, we will likely, not likely, we are. We're covering it later this season, so you can get excited for that. There's also probably going to be a guest on that episode, so you can
Yes.
look forward to that as well. But anyways, The Shawshank Redemption was a direct inspiration for some of their sequences regarding the quote-unquote prison.
Correct. And then I haven't seen these other two, but they also drew from Cool Hand Luke and The Great Escape.
Cool Hand Luke, I believe, is that a Clint Eastwood film? No, it's Paul Newman. Yes, it's a Paul Newman film. Paul Newman also did a Pixar film.
It's true.
He was the voice of Doc Hudson in Cars. I love Paul Newman. He's awesome. Actually, I literally was just talking about this movie, Cool Hand Luke, not 3 days ago.
Oh, really?
With one of my coworkers. I have not seen it. It's on my list, but he was telling me that it's like a phenomenal movie. It's a if you like Paul Newman, you got to watch this movie. And I very much enjoy Paul Newman. So, anyways, that's very cool, very interesting.
We'll have to watch it.
Yes.
All right, next. Disney got sued for the use of Lotso by a company called, I'm going to butcher this name, Lisa, I think,
Okay.
Industries, who owns the quote-unquote Lots of Hugs trademark. Since Disney's character was, the actual name was a Lotso hug and bear, the similarities were too close for the company to let it slide. So this company decided to focus on the stuffed bears that Disney was releasing as merchandise for the films. And they claimed that Disney took sales away from their bear that has a similar name. So in the end, the judge sided with this toy company. And in storyboards for Toy Story 3, Lotso actually looked more like a Care Bear, which likely would have been a better idea than trying to get away with this other character, which I don't know if it was something that they if it happened accidentally or if they actually saw that stuffed animal and took from it. I don't know, but
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the bear that was in existence prior to Toy Story 3 that this company decided to sue over, but It sounds like it's more so just the name. Like,
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, I don't know
But
as far as
ultimately,
appearances go, but
they lost. So Disney lost.
yes, I was going to say,
Yeah.
you just said that
Yeah,
they
sorry,
won.
I should have
So,
been more specific.
Yes, Disney lost, and the little guy won. The judge sided with them.
Yes. Did you find what you were looking for online?
I did. Yep. So the last movie that came out prior to Toy Story 3 was Up.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, I feel like it's just a confirmation of everything that I already said. Like, you have, in terms of Pixar history, Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, Toy Story 3. Finding Nemo feels like a distinct turning point for Pixar. And then, you kind of have like the build up to Toy Story 3. Cars was just something extremely different, extremely well done, and definitely a change in terms of their animation. But Ratatouille was especially as well. Certainly WALL-E and Up was too. But all of those things were just leading up to the swan song, I guess, if you want to call it that, or maybe not, because it's not their final one, but to the grandeur of Toy Story 3. It was a bunch of build-up.
Okay, moving on. Andy was voiced by John Morris in the previous 2 Toy Story movies. And the director believed it was incredibly important that they brought back the original actor for Toy Story 3. So he explained that this was just to maintain continuity between the films, and he said that John Morris was incredibly thankful that Pixar asked him to return. And it actually took them quite a bit of time to find John Morris, though, because he had stopped working as a voice actor after 2001. But I thought that was cool that they brought him back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This movie is in the top 10 highest grossing animated films ever. And when it first came out, it was number 1. But I got curious, so I just looked up the top 10 highest grossing movies or animated movies. Do you have any guesses of what is on the list?
I'd have to kind of think about it, but I mean, Spider-Man...
animated movies.
Yes.
Okay.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse certainly has to be in there. I would have to imagine that movie has done ridiculously well. Or maybe Into the Spider-Verse, one of the 2 Spider-Verse movies. Are either of those on the list?
They are not in the top 10.
Really?
Spider-Man, what'd you say? It's
Into
called
the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, either
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is ranked 31.
Holy cow.
But the other one is not on this list.
That's shocking. Okay, well, I'm sure I could probably guess some of them, but in the sake of time saving, I'd be interested to hear the other movies.
Okay, so as of January 10th of 2025, that's when this was last updated. Inside Out 2 is ranked number 1.
Actually, I did know that. Okay.
Then after that, The Lion King, the live action version, which I could go either way. Technically, I guess it is animated because they didn't get actual lions to,
Yeah, but
but
I wouldn't.
at the same time,
That's a load of garbage. I would not even include that on the list because they're right.
agree.
It's computer generated. They didn't use real animals, but the name, like itself, kind of eliminates it. It's the quote unquote live action version. Like it's intended to look real. So that's like a whole semantics thing. I would not qualify it on that list.
Yes, and also, honestly, I didn't really care for that, but that's besides the point. Third is Frozen 2.
Okay.
Fourth is the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
That's fantastic. I love that it's in the top 5.
Yes, me too. Fifth is Frozen. Sixth, Incredibles 2. 7, Minions. 8th, Toy Story 4. 9th, Toy Story 3. And 10th is Despicable Me 3.
What's 11?
Finding Dory.
Okay, so that's your true top 10 minus The Lion King.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Okay, very interesting. I don't know that I necessarily would like agree with all of those as far as like that's where those movies deserve to fall.
Right. It's just
However,
based on how much money they made.
Exactly. It makes perfect sense when you think about like Toy Story 4 being higher than Toy Story 3.
Right.
Well, it's because Toy Story 3 was so
amazing.
good that everybody
Yeah.
was excited for 4. Same thing with Finding
And then
Dory.
we're let down.
We're not talking about that right now. Same thing with Finding Dory. Finding Nemo was so good that everybody was excited to see it, and it was just,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad movie by any means. It's
Right.
just, it's not nearly as good as the original.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Okay, I just have a few more. For Big Baby's one line for the entire movie, Mama,
yes.
the crew had a lot of babies audition by recording them saying the line. And the baby that was chosen was actually named Woody.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Next, there are 302 characters in this movie, the most of any Pixar film ever.
Wow.
Next, Andy's last name can be spotted. Did you see it?
No, I did not.
So, near the beginning of the movie, Woody is looking at photos on the bulletin board, and underneath one is a certificate with the name Andy Davis on it. And that is the first time it's ever been mentioned in any of the Toy Story movies.
Huh. Interesting.
And my last one is that in the end credits, there is like a little scene of Buzz and Jessie like dancing. It's like a flamenco song playing. And the song is actually a Spanish version of You've Got a Friend in Me. And I went on YouTube and like looked it up because I couldn't remember what it was. And I mean, I can hear it now that I've seen it and know that in my head.
I think I remember that. It's been a long time since I've watched that scene though.
Yeah. Well, that is all I've got.
Okay. Well, my production details aren't super extensive because a lot of it consists of pre-production or leading up to the film. So I'll dig in there and we'll keep moving. All right. So when Disney and Pixar partnered up originally, Disney did not own Pixar. Obviously, we know today that that's the case. That's changed, that Disney does own Pixar. But originally they did not, and it was a partnership. And there were many, many years where the relationship between the two companies was very strained. Actually, it was Steve Jobs that helped kind of be the guy that kept things moving forward, or mutual, if you want to call it that. He was a good kind of middleman to cool people off and get things moving in the right direction. But I guess for those of you who don't know, Steve Jobs was heavily involved in Pixar. He was like the head of Pixar, and
I believe he was a producer on one of the first two Toy Story movies.
He likely was, because he was like, I don't remember his exact title, but he was like the head of Pixar. Mm-hmm. So anyways, at the time of pre-production for Toy Story 3, Pixar had a 7-film deal with Disney, wherein Disney owned all the rights to any characters that were created by Pixar and their sequels all the way up to the movie Cars. So I did kind of go through that list just a few moments ago, but that would essentially include any characters from Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and Cars. So all of those films and its characters, and you can throw Toy Story 2 in there because it's a sequel, but the characters of all of those films, Disney owned the legal rights to those characters despite not owning Pixar. So because of that deal, there was like a stipulation in there that Disney also owned the rights to kind of move forward with sequels or not move forward with them. It wasn't necessarily up to Pixar. However, Pixar retained the right of first refusal to work on the sequels or not. So Disney owned these characters, their film universes, all that stuff, and they would then basically say, okay, Toy Story 1 and 2 did fantastic. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do a Toy Story 3. So then they would come to Pixar and say, hey, we're going to do it. Do you guys want to do it? Like, do you want to animate it? Mm-hmm. If not, then, we're going to keep moving. We'll get another production company, another animation studio. But they legally retained the right of first refusal to work on any of the sequels if they wanted to or not. So at this point in Pixar and Disney's history, things were not going very well. Actually, things were going very, very poorly. And it was very, very much looking like Disney and Pixar were going to split, that they were no longer going to have any form of partnership, and that they were going to be done altogether. So Disney knew that they wanted to do a Toy Story 3 and that they were going to continue moving forward with it because the first two movies did so good and they owned the rights to all those characters and its sequels. So they decided that they were going to go ahead and pitch the film to another animation studio called Circle 7 Productions?
Circle 7 Animation.
Circle 7 Animation. Okay, I just wrote Circle 7. I thought I had all of it. Thank you. So they went ahead and they said, hey, we'd like you guys to go ahead and do this. And Circle 7 was absolutely on board right from the get-go. So they came up with a few concepts, and they pitched to Disney with their ideas, said this is what we want to do. The first idea that they had was that Andy was going to have to go and stay at his grandmother's house because his room was being remodeled. And they were going to have basically a whodunit mystery thread for this film where Andy's toys kept disappearing, and they were going to have to investigate what was going on. So I thought that was super interesting, and evidently Disney did too, so much so that despite, obviously we know that Pixar did end up doing Toy Story 3. So we'll get to that here in a little bit and why that happened. But despite Circle 7 not being the ones to end up doing Toy Story 3, they liked it so much that they held on to the rights for this script, and they were going to use it as the storyline for Toy Story 4.
Oh, wow.
Yep, that's how much they liked this pitch. And obviously we know that didn't happen either. But anyways, alternatively, they had another storyline that they pitched, which was going to involve a recall on all Buzz Lightyear action figures. So what was going to happen was that there was going to be this recall on Buzz Lightyear action figures, that all Buzz Lightyears were going to have to come back to Taiwan, where they were manufactured, so that they could get fixed whatever issue they were going to create for the story. They were going to need to send the Buzz Lightyears back to Taiwan, including our Buzz Lightyear, voiced by Tim Allen. And during this process, Buzz was going to encounter a new rival action figure called Dax Blastar. So whether those two storylines would have interwoven, one being the A story, the other being the B story, I don't know. Obviously, we will never know. But those were the two storylines that they pitched to Disney, and Disney loved it. But as history has told us, and as we all know, none of this came to fruition. Why is that? Well, after many, many strained relationships under the leadership of Michael Eisner as the head of Disney, Disney said, we're done with you, Michael Eisner. You are no longer the head of the company. And then they brought in somebody that we all know. He actually retired, and maybe not reluctantly, but came back to be the head of Disney. Do you know his name, Emily?
I don't know if I do.
Mr. Bob Iger.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know him.
Yes, I know him.
So once Bob Iger became the new head of Disney, the CEO, he made it one of his top priorities to fix the relationship between Disney and Pixar. The first step in doing that, he bought Pixar. Disney acquired Pixar to basically put any sort of finality to the relationship between them to bed. That, hey, we're no longer going to disagree. We're not going to leave any room for disagreement because we're on the same team. We've made some really amazing films in the past, and we're going to keep doing that together collectively. And, we're going to have to figure this out. So Disney acquired Pixar, and they got some people, some key heads of studio put in Pixar to help smooth the relationship between Disney Animation and Pixar, and they got everything moving forward. And unfortunately, Circle 7 Animation was actually closed after not getting the Toy Story 3 script, and all of their plans were scrapped.
Did they ever make any movies?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I would just be curious to know which ones they were if they did.
Yeah, I have no clue. So we had Pixar under new leadership maybe not under new leadership, but they had a new home in that they were not independent. They weren't relying on Apple. They were fully owned by Disney. And so they had a brain trust, quote unquote, in place with John Lasseter and a handful of other people that started developing their own sequel. These gentlemen that were placed in charge, Lasseter, Stanton, Doctor, Unkrich, they intentionally avoided reviewing Circle 7 script because they wanted to do a completely fresh take on a sequel to Toy Story 2, which they inevitably wound up with Andy's toys mistakenly being donated to a daycare center as Andy prepares for college. And that's basically all that I have for the interesting stuff. There's a few other things. One notable thing is that you mentioned that it took them a really long time. They faced a lot of challenges with the trash animation. I found that it took them over 1.5 years of research in order to create a simulator for the junkyard sequences to simulate all the different textures and surfaces of the various different types of trash that were there, because they wanted it to be realistic and not just be like one item just a million times.
Right.
So they had to completely create a new system to simulate all of that at one time, and they did so effectively, but it took them 1.5 years to do so. And then additionally, this was the first time ever that Dolby 7.1 surround sound was introduced with a Pixar film, which they obviously used for Toy Story 3 in its theatrical release. So thought that was pretty cool. And then Tom Hanks received a cool $15 million for voicing Woody. At the time, he was the highest. That was the highest salary for a voice actor ever. I don't know if it still is or is not, but anywho.
Interesting stuff.
Yep, and that's all I got.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you first. How would you rate this movie?
I think I'm going to give it a 94.
Ooh, that's exactly what I was going to give it.
It's just so good.
Yes.
It's, funny and emotional.
Yes.
And I don't know. It's just, I love it.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. There's, I don't know. Let's just go ahead. At least I'm going to. You don't have to if you don't want to. But let's walk through the Toy Story movies. So you have Toy Story 1.
That's where Sid comes in.
Yes. Sid, and a very, very rudimentary animation. This was their first ever film. And Toy Story 1's a good movie.
It is. The toys gave me nightmares that Sid would make.
Yeah.
Which, granted, I was very young when I watched it for the first time.
Yeah. So then you have Toy Story 2. And in that film, we are introduced to kind of Woody's...
Roundup.
Yeah, well, yes, Woody's Roundup. You got Stinky Pete, the prospector, Bullseye, and Jesse. And then on the other side of the story, you have the other toys trying to go back and find Woody and get him back to Andy.
Al's Toy Barn.
Yes. And then you have this film. You have Andy growing up. He's going to college. Toys go to Sunnyside Daycare. Meet a handful of new toys. And then we actually get a new owner for the toys at the end of the film.
Bonnie.
With Bonnie. And then Toy Story 4, we have Bonnie as the owner of the toys now. And, they kind of go on this adventure. We get a homemade toy in Forky. And then Woody ends up leaving the gang after he's reunited with Bo Peep.
Yes.
And that's it. So those are the 4 movies. I have to say undoubtedly that Toy Story 3 is the best Toy Story out of them all.
Can I share something?
Yes.
So I just looked up on Rotten Tomatoes what each Toy Story movie got as their percentage or whatever.
Okay.
Toy Story 2 and 1 both got 100%.
Really?
Toy Story 3, 98%.
Okay.
Toy Story 4, 97%.
Wow, very interesting. And these are from critics or from audiences? Is it the tomato or the popcorn bucket?
These are from the tomato.
Okay, so that's the critic score.
Correct.
Okay, very interesting. So I would disagree with the critics.
I would too.
I think that Toy Story 1 and 2 are phenomenal, although I think that Toy Story 3 is by far the best. If I was going to give my personal ranking, I would give Toy Story 3 as number 1. Number 2, I'm going to give to Toy Story 2. I know I agree. There's some people that aren't big fans of Toy Story 2. I love that movie. Mm-hmm. I prefer it much more to Toy Story 1. Not to say that Toy Story 1 is bad. I just think Toy Story 2 is funnier. And it's the whole sequence with Jessie being hurt by her owner. And, she has such bad anxiety. I just truly love everything about Toy Story 2. I would gladly watch that movie any day, and I honestly can't say that that's true of Toy Story 1, at least for me.
Listen to this. This is interesting, because I just looked up the popcorn meter.
Okay, let me finish real quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, and then Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 4 are my last 2 movies. I think I'm honestly going to tie them for third place. And that might be a little controversial because I know there are a lot of detractors to Toy Story 4. I can appreciate that movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It's not great. It's nowhere even close to Toy Story 3. But I don't love Toy Story 1. I don't hate it. I'm not saying it's a bad movie by any means. It is a very good movie. But I guess part of my detraction towards that movie is a couple things. One, the animation is dated, and that's not the movie's fault, but that definitely makes the viewing experience not nearly as enjoyable. But I'm willing to look past that, and that should not affect the score for the story or anything else. But I don't love that for the majority of the movie, Woody's just screaming. He's mad the whole time and is just yelling. And I get it. It's funny, because Buzz is, so assured that he's not a toy and so many other things. It's a good story. But I don't love the, I don't love that for Woody's characterization. I kind of view Woody as a Boy Scout on the same level that I view Captain America and Superman. And so I don't love that. And, you know, Toy Story 4 is a good story. It gets a lot of hate, and I'm not here for that. It's not even close to Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3, but it's not as bad as people like to make it out to be either.
Yes, I would agree. I will say I've been unnecessarily mean about Toy Story 4.
And
It is good. It's just, I don't think it compares to 3.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, final thought on Toy Story 1. You kind of mentioned it earlier, but let's be honest. The toys in Toy Story 1 from Sid's room are freaks. And obviously,
they're supposed to be.
That's the point. They're supposed to be, but those are like something straight out of like a horror movie. Like they're messed up. And so let's not let that go unnoticed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am very upset about the audience scores for these movies, I will say. Ranked at the top, Toy Story 4.
That doesn't surprise me.
94%. Next is Toy Story 1.
Okay.
With a 92. Then Toy Story 3 with a 90. Then Toy Story 2 with an 87.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me, truly, that Toy Story 4 is the highest out of all of them, just because, I don't know, it felt like the hype for that movie was so big when it came out, like it was almost too big to fail. Everybody loves Toy Story, and it's emotional enough that anybody with a phone that can go on and throw their audience review on Rotten Tomatoes was just going to like it. You know, I don't know.
I am really shocked that Toy Story 2 was ranked the lowest, though.
Yeah, me too.
But whatever. It's
And
all right.
it also doesn't surprise me that Toy Story 1 is kind of higher on the audience score just purely for nostalgia.
Yeah.
But Toy Story 3 is undoubtedly the best.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And one of the reasons why I think it's undoubtedly the best is the opening sequence. It's by far the best opening sequence out of any of the films. I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't really remember the opening sequence to Toy Story 4. I think
I don't either.
I've only seen it one time. So if you're someone out there saying that Toy Story 4's opening sequence was amazing, I apologize. I don't recall. But Toy Story 3's opening sequence is fantastic. Just the whole idea that we actually get to experience a child's imagination taking place is so good.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember seeing this movie in theaters back in, when did this come out? You said it was
2010.
Okay. So I remember seeing this in theaters in 2010 with my dad. It was just my dad and I, and maybe one of my nephews. I think Gabe may have come with, but I'm not sure. I know my dad and I went. And then I actually saw this in theaters a second time, and I know I was with my nephew Gabe that time because I was with my sister and brother-in-law at a drive-in movie theater where I saw it for a second time in a back-to-back feature with Karate Kid, Jaden Smith, that version, which, by the way, if you like that movie, we have an episode covering that as well from earlier this season. We compared it to the original Karate Kid, so go check that out. But anyways, so I remember seeing this in theaters for the first time with my dad and just falling in love with it. It's so captivating. The whole movie, start to finish, and it obviously, like I was saying, it starts with the opening sequence. And the whole chain of events, I guess, that's going on in that, obviously it's from Andy's perspective, but the dialogue that comes through the characters, like Andy and Mr. Potato Head and, Evil Dr. Porkchop, Ham, all of those guys, you can hear like Andy's voice talking through him or through them as he's playing with them. So just like in like a child logic. So, I don't know if you did this as a kid. I'm sure you did, because I've heard stories from you and your sister, but I know for a fact that I did. and you see it with little kids all the time. You know, you teach first grade, so I'm sure you hear it on a daily basis. But just when kids are playing, you're always trying to like one up each other as you're like imagining things, you know? So like perfect example in the opening sequence, when Woody kind of has the potato heads cornered, and then out of nowhere, Slink comes down and he's like, oh, well, I've brought my force field dog. Like, you can't get me.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly something
And
a
then
kid
he
would say.
says-
But then, yes, go ahead.
That he brought his dinosaur that eats force field dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that is through and through a child's imagination, and that's exactly what happens. Like, I can remember doing that type of stuff with my friends and be like, oh, like, I have this Nerf gun shoots through any, you know, Nerf armor or anything. Oh, well, I have a force field that deflects those bullets. Like, that's what you do. All kids do that. And I love that that came through in this opening sequence because it's so authentic and everybody can relate to it. And it's so cute. You know, it's like, it's fun and it's just a really, really cool opening sequence. And then the transition too from the whole like imaginary scenario to then going to like Andy playing in his room. His mom is recording him, and then his little sister Lucy comes in. She knocks down the roller coaster, or not roller coaster, but the train tracks. He's like, it's okay, like it's a baby from outer space. He just keeps like going into the imagination that he was playing with his toys, and like it's so fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
So, in an effort to give you some more talking points, because I can really ramble about this movie. I can talk about it a lot because I really enjoy it and I'm passionate about it. And if I'm not careful, I'm just gonna keep going. I guess I want to ask you, how do you feel about the age jump? What are your thoughts about that as a storytelling device, having Andy being aged up and in college and so on?
At the beginning, I had really mixed feelings. I think I was bummed just because, you know, we basically like got to see Andy. We did see Andy in both the first and the second movies, and you know, change is hard for anybody. So I do think like when I first saw this movie, I was kind of sad, just like knowing like, oh, we're not going to get to see Andy like playing much with the toys. But I also like that, you know, since this movie came out so many years after Toy Story 2, I liked that they made that decision to make him older. And it almost made me want the same for when they did Incredibles 2. Just because that one came way after the first Incredibles.
Yeah, I think it was 14 years after, or something like that.
Yeah. So just because I feel like they handled it very, very well in this movie. I loved that we got to kind of see, and it was, you know, it's relatable because, you know, you and I both have gone through the whole moving away from home process. And I don't know if you went through this, but like for me, like, I kind of had to do that same stuff, like getting rid of like childhood things. And that's so hard because I'm just such a, not hoarder, but just nostalgic person, I guess. And I don't like to get rid of things that had sentimental value to me. So I really liked that we kind of got a glimpse of that. But also just seeing, you know, knowing that even after Andy's grown up and too old to play with toys anymore, that they went to a good home, like knowing that they're not going to just sit on a shelf, was, I think, like reassuring as an audience. So, and I really, really loved seeing him hand those toys off to Bonnie. It was super sweet. That if we end up talking about our favorite scenes, if we have enough time, that is probably one of my top favorite scenes. Just him handing off the toys to Bonnie, explaining to her like what they meant to him, and what their names are and what they do. And then also like watching him play with her, it's just like so sweet and a tearjerker for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, so hopefully that answers your question somewhat.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I would agree. I think the jump from child Andy to adult Andy is a bit of a hard pill to swallow. I mean, it's a fact of life. That's what happens. And as nice as it would be to stay a little kid forever and be able to just play and enjoy the carefree nature of childhood, that would be awesome, but there would be no growth, and it's also not how life goes. So it stinks a little bit at first, but it's interesting to see Andy put in that position and see how everything plays out. And I enjoy it. I mean, it's funny to see Buster all old and fat and gray, and like, I love Buster. He's a great character in the Toy Story universe. And then, it's just kind of like you said, like, we have gone through the process of obviously moving away from home and going to college and all that stuff. But I can distinctly remember that point in my life where it was like, okay, I'm moving out, and I've held on to these toys specifically because they were special to me, and now it's time to get rid of them, or do something with them. And I was forced with that choice, and it's one of those like weird ones because you are faced with that reality that's like, yeah, like, I don't need these. I certainly don't play with them on a daily basis. Definitely not weekly, probably not monthly. Maybe not even yearly playing with these. And that had been true for many years. But, you get kind of attached to special toys and whatnot. You grow special memories with them. And so I remember, a handful of different things. My G.I. Joes, I had a lot of those. My Bionicle action figures, those things were amazing. Loved those. As well as like a lot of Lego. And I still have a lot of Lego, but it's just different now. But I had a lot of Lego, as well as Pokemon cards, and I ended up giving pretty much all of that away. And it was very freeing after you did, because I gave almost all of it to our nephews and nieces. I gave some of them to my cousins. But anyways, I say all that to say that, like, I've been in that situation, and I'm sure you have as well. And that it's kind of like one of those bittersweet moments. It's really painful, not fun, but also like the joy that it brought our nephews and nieces as well, and my cousins, like, they were thrilled. And those toys hadn't really gotten played with. So anyways, it's a very, very good storytelling device that they chose to utilize, and I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
It's just one of those tough ones.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Sunnyside. Sunnyside is an interesting setting. It's a different setting. Obviously, like the first two movies, and this movie too, everything kind of takes place in Andy's room, but we're really only in Andy's room for the first few minutes of this film, and then we're in Sunnyside for essentially the rest of the film. And there's that's kind of true of Toy Story 2 as well, and Toy Story 1 to a certain extent. But anyways, Sunnyside is a new setting for our characters. What are your thoughts on it and its characters that it introduced to us?
I feel like it is a very accurate depiction.
Yes.
Just
You would know as you teach first grade.
Yes.
And faithfully serve in the nursery at our church.
Yes. I think that, like, even a couple of my first graders still, stick everything in their mouths
Yeah.
or in their nose or, like just do things like that, are gross.
Right.
So, I do, and are really rough with their toys sometimes and that kind of thing. But also, a lot of them, they're getting to that age where, when we see the scene where they Buzz catches a glimpse into the butterfly room and you see them just taking such good care of their toys. I would say that my girls are probably more so like that at this age than my boys are. But yeah, so I just think they did a very good job of accurately depicting the different levels of maturity and playing and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I do like that we are, because of Sunnyside, introduced to new toys. I think Lotso is a great villain. I love it. I love that it's like a giant, cute teddy bear.
Yeah.
That is the villain. I hate Big Baby. It just freaked me out from the beginning. But
that, I would say that's probably true for most people.
yeah. And I love Ken. I love the telephone guy. I remember having that same phone when I was little.
Yes.
So yeah, I liked being like that. We were introduced to more toys in that setting, and also at Bonnie's house too.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit on some of the characters at Sunnyside first. So yeah, the telephone, love him. He doesn't really have a lot of screen time, but he has my favorite quote from this film. It's kind of odd, but I love when he says, "Get that monkey."
Yes, I do too.
That cracks me up. Or he says something along those lines. So that's love the phone for that. But then also we're introduced, like you said, to Ken, Barbie's counterpart, and voiced by Michael Keaton. Mm-hmm. Ken is maybe one of the best highlights of this film.
Oh, easily.
He's hilarious. I honestly, I didn't know for the longest time that Michael Keaton was the one who played Ken in this, and he's so funny. Mm-hmm. And that's, Michael Keaton got his start in comedy films. Then he went on to do some action films, and he's done a lot of dramatic work as well. He's kind of done a little bit of everything over the years, but I think that's all to say that he's just a phenomenal actor. But his voice acting work here is fantastic.
Did you know, I don't know if you caught when Ken tells whoever to take Buzz to the library, that he says library, and that was choice of Michael Keaton. He decided to just do it like that one day as they were recording, and the director just loved it, and so he was like, yes, do that, say
Really?
library.
That's hilarious. No, I did not pick up on that, but that's super funny. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I mean, just Ken is maybe one of the best toys in this film, period. But his dynamic with Barbie is great. It's everything that you would hope for Ken to be.
Oh, yeah.
And Michael Keaton is so funny as him. So love that he's in this film. Okay, then we have Lotso. Lotso is, as you said, a great villain, and you gotta love to hate this guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he is a great villain, honestly. This guy's just a jerk. And I mean, it's sad. It's tragic. But when faced with opportunity to do the right thing, he just chose evil. Mm-hmm. He completely chose to leave the toys in the trash incinerator when he had an opportunity to stop them. And he was shown mercy and grace by
Woody.
Buzz and Woody after they got down, almost got torn to shreds in the trash shredder thing. And they saved his life. And then he got up and left all those toys to die. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this guy is a scumbag. And He's a cute little teddy bear that smells like strawberries.
My sister got a Lotso toy from Disney World, and it smelled like strawberries, and it probably still does to this day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I honestly didn't know that they made actual bears until we started dating.
It was like her
like a decade
favorite
ago.
stuffed animal.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But I never knew, like, I always assumed this, and I had no reason to assume this, but as a kid, I always thought that Lotso was voiced by Tommy Lee Jones. And it really doesn't sound like him. Like, you could, like, there's some of it that you could say it sounded like him, but, you know, like, a good voice actor doesn't just do their normal voice, they do a character's voice. And so, like, perfect example of that is, like, if you've ever seen Monsters vs. Aliens, the general in that movie is voiced by Kiefer Sutherland. If you watch that movie, you would not think it's Kiefer Sutherland. So I guess I always just had it in my mind as a kid that Tommy Lee Jones voiced Lotso. And I always had it probably because he kind of has like that Southern twang going and what he's like his dialogue and whatnot. But he also, I don't know if this was intentional on the animator side, but like Lotso's face kind of looks like Tommy Lee Jones. Like the big bushy eyebrows, the position of the cheekbones, the eyes, like he looks like Tommy Lee Jones.
I could see it a little.
Like, and I guess always made that assumption in my mind as a kid. He is in fact not voiced by Tommy Lee Jones. He's voiced by some guy I've never heard of, to tell you the truth. I apologize if any of you are a big fan of his, but his name is Ned Beatty.
I pronounced it Beatty, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I've seen him. The only other movie I've seen him in is Shooter and Rudy. He's definitely done good work. He was also in Deliverance and White Lightning, Superman the movie. So I sincerely apologize, but I guess I always just assumed it was Tommy Lee Jones, and it is not. But anyways, he's a fantastic villain who is tragically scarred by his owner, Daisy, who left Chuckles, the clown, and Baby, and Lotso.
Yes.
He had a really great backstory.
Yes, he did.
Kind of similar to Jesse's. I mean, not, but yeah, it's like same but different.
Yeah, because she was also like forgotten.
Yeah.
And yeah, not replaced, I guess, but
yeah,
just kind of under the bed, and like her person grew up. So I guess it's a little bit different.
I mean, she did kind of get replaced, but like not in the same way.
Yeah, not with another Jessie doll.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Anyways, it was just, I don't know. When the whole sequence started showing Lotso's story, when I saw it for the first time, I remember thinking, oh yeah, like this kind of reminds me of Jesse's story. But anywho, okay. Well, I think those are some good conversational story beats that we've discussed here. Let's talk about the not quite ending, but maybe the climax of the film. When the toys are at the junkyard. And, you know, we already mentioned how Buzz and Woody showed mercy to Lotso, and then he left them for dead and ran away. And then we have the scene.
Yes.
The scene. I remember watching the scene in the movie theaters, and I was sobbing.
Oh,
like,
yeah, easily.
You know, not like uncontrollably, but I was like ready to start bawling because I thought...
Sorry, go ahead.
I thought all these toys were going to die, you know?
Yeah.
It's like all these toys that we love, that we've been on an adventure with for the last hour and a half, and then we also have Toy Story 2 and 1 of memories for these guys, and we're just going to watch them slowly get incinerated. Like, I mean, and the film does not hold back. Like, it's full tilt, and there is no hope in that situation that anything is going to happen. That scene is insane.
It wrecks me every time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's true of probably everybody. I know that our good friend Jordan Bewley, his dad, one of my favorite people in the world, is not like a huge movie guy, and he has said that like this movie, like he likes this movie and he'll watch this movie, but that he like was about to cry watching this movie because I think it was Chris. I don't know. Maybe all of them. Maybe it was Robin. Yeah. Anyways, my memory is a little fuzzy. Hopefully they're listening to this episode. If you are, hi guys. But anywho, I remember there being a story there about just watching this movie and being in tears during that sequence.
Mm-hmm. Well, I still remember vividly the first time I ever saw this was in theaters, actually in Georgia, the same exact week that I saw Karate Kid in theaters, also in Georgia.
Nice.
And my dad is not a crier. He's not, I wouldn't classify him as a super emotional, sensitive guy.
Yeah.
But I remember looking over and he even had tears in his eyes. And like, that just like says it all for me.
Yeah. I mean, they committed hard to this. I mean, because, every scene throughout the movie is just this whole buildup of like Woody's got a plan or Buzz has a plan or, they're executing all this stuff. Like something we didn't touch on is the whole prison break sequence. Like that whole sequence is fantastic. It's so much fun. It's so well done. It's hilarious. There's lots of like just ingenious sequences. You have Mr. Potato Head getting out of the box with a tortilla. And like that whole thing is funny. And then he ends up getting ripped to shreds by birds, has to be put himself on a cucumber. Like all of that is great. And you have like, Woody getting out of the toy room and like just, man, all of it is so good. But anyways, I say all that to say that like pretty much in every sequence you have all these like very clear next steps, I guess. As an audience member, you're like, okay, like I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know that the toys have something up their sleeve.
Right.
That they're going to do something. And by this point in the film, like you as an audience member just come to realize that they don't.
Right.
They have nothing. And maybe the final like kind of the final curtain, if you want to call it that, is when all the toys start holding hands. Like, and that's what makes it so emotional. One by one, they start holding hands, and you're like, oh, okay, like they're accepting their fate. But there's always the one toy who rallies behind everybody, who gets everybody going, and moves them towards whatever they need to be doing in that situation, and that's Woody. Woody is always the guy who's the voice of reason. I referred to him as a Boy Scout earlier. That's who he is. He's that guy. He's going to get them out of whatever situation they're in. He's going to find a solution. He's going to solve the problem. And Woody looks around. He sees everybody, and he holds their hands too. And they close their eyes, and they're just... and you have the music playing in the background, and it's like
this intense, like, dun dun.
It's literally like the music from Terminator 2 when Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is like willingly sacrificing himself in the lava. It's like literally the same soundtrack. Which that's a great movie too. Don't even get me started. But it's like you're led to believe that like the toys are all going to die here. Probably traumatized a whole generation. But it all worked out. And the aliens saved their lives, and they are eternally grateful. I love quoting that with my brother. You have saved our lives. We're eternally grateful. I love that. But anyways, that sequence and that sequence specifically is a gut-wrenching one, so I wanted to spend some time talking about it.
Yes. It's definitely I think, number one standout scene of probably the entire series of Toy Story movies.
Yeah, probably. And that's probably what makes this film specifically feel like such a big deal. Just because like it is the culmination of the 3 Toy Story films, and there are genuine stakes here, genuine stakes present. And, the fact that like the aliens come and save the, all the toys, it doesn't feel like a cop-out. It doesn't feel like a cheat. It honestly is like a welcome relief. So I'm very thankful that the toys got saved, obviously, but I like that the scene was so intense and so dramatic that the resolution, even though it is kind of a silly one, and when you really think about it, it's like, okay, when on earth did the aliens get there?
Well, you do see them like get split up at the beginning when they first get in the...
Yes, but
Yeah.
even still, like, how would they know that that's where they're at? And you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yes, I
like
agree
there's
with that,
so
yeah.
many like things like that if you really wanted to, like, you could dig in and like you could really be a snob about like, oh, well, this and that and whatever. Like, it's so intense that you don't care. Like, this is just like okay, thank you that was the solution.
Yeah.
But anyways, I could keep going and going. I do want to say, I kind of touched on some of the voice actors earlier and talking about Ken, Michael Keaton. We were also introduced to other new characters in Bonnie's Toys. I just love the fact that Buttercup, the unicorn, with the blonde mane or whatever, was voiced by Jeff Garlin. I love Jeff Garlin. My love for him stems from my childhood because he was the goofy guy in Daddy Daycare. Marvin. I can quote so many lines from that movie, and he is hilarious. So I very much appreciate that he is in this film as Buttercup. Also, Bonnie Hunt is in this movie. She voices Dolly, who also voices another Pixar character.
Well, several.
Yes, but her main performance was as Sally in the movie Cars. And then you also have a former 007 voicing Mr. Pricklepants, the porcupine that takes himself a little too seriously and likes to think that he's a dramatic actor, was voiced by Mr. Timothy Dalton. So that's pretty insane. You had a through and through James Bond as one of your voice actors in the film. And then Trixie, the Triceratops, is voiced by Kristen Schaal. I apologize if that's not how you pronounce her name, but she is a hilarious comedic actor who has done a lot of great work. So I love that this is kind of Bonnie's lineup here. She had some really solid toys, and it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't mention them. And then also, just very briefly, very quickly, Sergeant from the Army guys was voiced by R. Lee Ermey. Not sure if that's how you pronounce his last name, but he's awesome. Like, he is a phenomenal actor. Most people would probably know him from Full Metal Jacket. That was one of his biggest roles ever as the drill sergeant in the movie. But he was also in the movie about Prefontaine. That's the one I'm thinking of. It's about Steve Prefontaine, and he plays the guy who founded Nike. But anyways, I just thought it was interesting that he voiced Sarge in all of the Toy Story films. He's a great voice, or a great actor, voice actor. But anywho, we've gone on for a very, 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 very long time, and it's been a very good episode, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Just real quick, if you had to pick one scene from the movie that is your favorite, what would it be?
I think what I said earlier, just when Andy gives his toys to Bonnie and they're playing together and he's just reflecting on what they mean to him.
Okay. I would say that my favorite sequence is what I said already. The opening sequence is probably my favorite scene in the movie. Bonnie, yay or nay? Do you like her? Do you not?
Yeah, I like her.
I think she's cute. I think she's a worthy successor to Andy.
I would agree.
And final question. Are you a fan of the aliens?
I could go either way.
Who doesn't love the aliens? They came and saved the day, right?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for indulging us and allowing us to talk about this at great lengths. It was a lot of fun to discuss such a great movie. So thank you for joining us.
Next week, we are going to be covering No Time to Die, which sadly is not streaming for free anywhere, so you will have to rent it. But I think it's worth it. It is a very solid movie.
Yes, it is the final Daniel Craig movie as 007. It's funny that we actually mentioned 007 earlier in this film. That was not intentional. But yes, next week we're going to be covering No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final performance as 007. Highly controversial for many people. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. And if you want to hear more about that, then join us next week. Like Emily said, it's not streaming anywhere, so you're going to have to rent it. It is worth it. But maybe, if you have time, watch some of the other 007 movies before you watch No Time to Die.
The Daniel Craig ones.
Yes, the Daniel Craig ones.
Just watch them all.
Yeah, just watch them all. There's not that many. Just do all of them. You can skip Quantum of Solace because it's not that good. But we will see you guys next week. We'll talk about it a lot more, and we hope you guys stay safe and have a great week.
See you then.
Bye.